Yeah, it's the same thing.
San Diego.
I'm the principal.
Good evening, folks. Welcome to the Town of Vernon's Candidates Forum. This is the first forum. It'll run from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. It's, again, February 19th, 2019. We'll have a second forum, March 19th, 2019, with a backup date, March the 20th, where we have inclement weather. Okay, I'm going to turn the proceedings over to Merle Wagner, the moderator for this evening.
Thank you, John. Let's start. Could everybody please silence their cell phones? I'd appreciate that.
Just turn it off.
I know. Every time I do this, same thing. Well, I'll hold it. Okay, we'll start out with the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It would be appreciated if everyone would hold their applause or comments till after all the questions have been asked or until we're out of time, because I want to make sure everybody gets a chance to answer. And did we pick who's going to start? Joe?
Yes,
Who's going to start? Did you pick a...
you can choose whoever you wish.
Oh, start with the big guy. Tom Bird. Okay. First question is, please describe your definition of annexation. Just a definition, what you think it means.
Are we going to get an introduction?
Sure. Mr. Bird.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight, and all the people that are listening. My name is Thomas Bird. I've been on the board as a supervisor since 2009 for 5 years, and as chairman for 5 years till present. I'm married for 44 wonderful years, and I went out with her 5 years before I got married, make sure she was the right one. My background is I was an apprenticeship for a carpenter. I received my apprenticeship when I was 21. In 30 years old, I bought into my father's business, and we had numerous properties and rentals and of like that. Then I went into management, and I retired as a head field superintendent in 2010. I've always been a goal-oriented person. When I first got on the town board, I wanted to do two things. I wanted to secure the borders of the town, and I wanted to, what they called years ago was opting out of county zoning, but what it really is administering our own zoning code. Those are the two things I wanted. And if you have the wrong people in there doing too many things not focused, helter-skelter, it just becomes a waste of money and a waste of time and a waste of resources. You need results. You need results in any type of business, any type of whatever you do. You need some type of results. And I even think that when you're on the town board, you have to have results because you're working with other people's money. It's taxpayer money. The things that we've accomplished here, we've got an actual fantastic fire department with the equipment that it takes a backseat to nobody in southeast Wisconsin. Believe me, if you should really go down there and look at that stuff. And one of the things when we were talking about that fire department, we found out that we were subsidizing the village of Big Bend $50,000 a year. And I had calculated about $500,000 they were into us. And when we split the departments, we got a check back from them for $487,000. So I call that even. The DPW, as we've upgraded its equipment immensely, and it's leaner than it was. The town facilities are in excellent shape. We've gotten rid of an old barn and an old building that were just eyesores and too costly to keep. And like I said, we opted out of the county zoning, and we've got a border agreement with McGuanago. Thank you.
I'm Gary Wiley. I'm running for Supervisor 2. I have been held in the position since I was appointed in 2014. I'd previously been on the town board in 1996 for 8 years. I was on the Plan Commission for that period of time. I had retired from the Big Bend Vernon Fire Department after 15 years, and I got talked into running for the town board by our current clerk, who at that time, Karen Shue. I've been a resident of the town of Vernon for coming up on 43 years, so I have a vested interest in what happens in the town of Vernon. I'm extremely diligent in trying to protect the town and make sure that the town is here forever. I've been married for 53 years to my wife, who probably wishes it was a little shorter. But anyway, because she's not a big fan. I don't even know if she voted for me, but we have three kids. We've been active in all aspects. I've been active in a lot of aspects of the town. I was on the town rec board. I coached softball. I coached hardball. Like I said, I got appointed back to the board in 2014, and in that time, we've worked very diligently in trying to accomplish a lot of goals that Tom had mentioned. Getting out of county zoning, I believe, is probably one of the major accomplishments that this board's accomplished. We had been trying to do that when I was first on the board in 1996, over 20 years of trying to get out of county zoning, and we finally accomplished it a year and a half ago. So taxes, we've been trying to hold the taxes down. Since I've been on the board, taxes have gone up about 5 cents a thousand, which I'm extremely happy, because I'm a taxpayer here as long as the rest of you, and we're not exempt from paying taxes just because we're on the town board. So we watch very carefully with what the taxpayers give us in regard to the money. I'm sure some other questions will come up as we progress through the evening, so at that time I'll let Supervisor Craig talk.
Great. Good evening. Thank you for coming. My name is Bill Craig. I've been Supervisor 4 for about 8 years now. I've been a resident in the town of Vernon for 32 years. Married to my wife Carol. I better get this right. I think it's 50 years in June, so I'll go back home and check my calendar. We've got 3 kids, all on their own right now.
12 grandchildren, 1 great-grandchild, and 6 of the grandkids do live in Vernon as well. I've been a member of the Plan Commission for about 5 years now, chairman of DPW, chairman of personnel committees for about the same period of time. I just want to backpedal a second and thank Joe Riley for setting up the forums, Merle Wagner for moderating, and Karen Shu for acting as timer. So their work is appreciated. I think the forums are a great opportunity for taxpayers, either in person or via email or whatever method, can ask questions of the candidates and hopefully satisfy those questions. My education goes back a ways. Graduated from UW Milwaukee, master's in music. Taught for about 15 years instrumental music, grades 5 through college. Kind of felt the burnout coming on. A good friend of mine talked me into getting a real estate broker's license back in '78 about. And so I worked summers part-time and kind of got my feet wet at it. And then I went on to become a certified real estate appraiser, which is a whole different license, different education background. Also did a lot of home construction. Additional education I've taken over the years, over 900 hours, zoning, finance, construction, shoreline, wetland issues, easements, all sorts of things. The nice part of that is my business history blends in really great with the Plan Commission, the issues that come up, to see them from a different perspective. I have served as an expert witness on farmlands and residential values. I've been on 2 of Paul Ryan's committees for about 6-7 years. Finance and Insurance Board and Construction and Real Estate. The nice part of that has always been, of course, Paul Ryan is now retired, but the nice part is we have small groups, 15, 20 people, we can have direct input to a member of Congress, what we see wrong out in the real world, because they really don't get that input otherwise. I'm currently a volunteer for Make a Difference Wisconsin. The name has recently changed to Secure Futures, where we go into the high schools. I've been in Waterford, McGuanago, Muskego, and just recently at Norris Farm. We go in and teach the seniors and juniors about a budget, establishing one, balancing a budget, what is a budget, and basic finance. So it's my way of putting back into the community also. Some of the things I'm really proud of that the board has done, Tom Bird mentioned one of the main ones, getting out of county zoning. For many years, the various boards worked at getting out of county zoning with no finalization. We finally managed to do that. That gives us our own zoning issues to deal with. We can issue our own zoning permits, which used to be a long waiting line with the county. And the only restrictions we have is shoreline and wetland is still under county jurisdiction. So they still are looking over our shoulder on that. We completed what we call Chapter 144. This was a complete set of guidelines to follow on commercial zone property. We worked to develop the new fire department, as Tom Bird had mentioned earlier, which is doing outstanding, probably one of the best in the whole state. We recently prevented an annexation. We just had the question, what's an annexation? I can come back to that. But we recently prevented an annexation by Big Bend of a property way up in Vernon Meadows, way out of Big Bend's boundaries. But when we appealed to the state for a recommendation, hopefully negative, they said this is a balloon on a string. It was so far off the beaten path for them to try it, but they did anyway. So that cost us some money. We've consolidated clerk and treasurer positions, which my estimate saves us about $700 to $7,200 a year in cost, plus economizes the operation. We've kept the quality of services very high overall while keeping taxes low. In the last 8 years, we've only had a 10-cent overall gain in tax rate, which is a little over a penny a year if you amortize it out. And we've negotiated a board agreement with McGuanago, and we're starting to negotiate border agreements with New Berlin and Muskego as well. So my future goals that I'd like to see for the board accomplish is continue to manage our tax levy, keeping the rates down, keeping spending down, working to promote businesses in the town in certain places only. And we've worked with Edgewood Greenhouses the last few years to expand their operation. We've already have helped Proven Power get established. They're doing a very good business. And Electronic Welding Company was approved tentatively, and they're in the town, but we just found out our last plan commission meeting, they temporarily have to lease the property out. This was in the previously used miniature golf course, just east of Evergreen at ES. So hopefully they'll get up and running in a few years. And as I say, we're continuing to work on border agreements, and there's a possibility down the road with state help that we could maybe do some kind of consolidation with the town of Waukesha. That's wishful thinking right now. But towns in Wisconsin cannot incorporate unless you meet really tough criteria. And towns are set up in Wisconsin to be eaten alive by cities and villages. That's their means of growth. If we were to take 2,000 reps from Vernon to petition Madison to let us incorporate, we'd have 50,000 cities and village reps there fighting because we're their food. So those are the difficult decisions we're dealing with right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's start over. Mr. Berg, please describe your definition of annexation. What does it entail?
My definition?
Your definition of annexation, how it pertains to you when you were right next to the town. I know you're not, but everybody, we cannot hear you. Everybody in this. Okay, explain what annexation is, whether you lived up right next to the village or you lived in the town.
It's still quiet. Sorry.
Can't hear?
It's still quiet.
I don't know how much more I can put it out.
I don't know how to do it.
It is on. It is on.
Start over. Can you hear that? Okay, thank
You
you.
hold it up.
Explain what you think annexation is, whether you live next to the village or you live in the center of town, and what could happen if land started to be taken from another village for you.
Well, first of all, in the annexation, the people want to leave where they are, and it's a township only, to go to a village. Now you got to examine what and why they're leaving, and then that tells you what they're looking for. Around when annexations happen around here, people are looking to develop. The people are looking for greater density, meaning you can put more parcels and get more out of it for revenue. If you go to a community that is afforded with sewer, you can actually even have smaller lots than 20,000 square feet, which are allotted now without sewer in the state. And also you have to look at why it may be business property, how it's owned. So it's when the landowner or the developer that owns the land wants to, and through an annexation, go to a different community with, like I said, either densities or they're looking for something else for the zoning that they can build on it.
Okay. We pretty well covered the next question, which would be, how does it benefit or hinder the person, so.
Well,
Let's get that one.
my thoughts are is that when, somebody says, well, I'm gonna annex, okay. And that's one of the things that happens in the town of Vernon. We never really even get to talk to these people because they get their mind made up because of the way our zoning is, number one, and the way our land use plans are. So, and I hope some of the questions come up about that.
Mr. Wilde, describe what your definition of a border agreement is.
A border agreement is something that you work with another community in trying to protect your own borders. The border agreement that we have worked out now with McGuanago will go in a phased-in type of a situation. It will lock in the town of Vernon borders that will protect it from future annexations where there would be no chance for us to protect the town. When I'm just trying to visualize, you have to realize that a town is at the bottom of the food chain. We're at risk of annexations from anybody who wants to take their property into another community because they want better services, they want to do something under what Tom indicated, zoning. We don't have any alternative to protect our border other than trying to work out an arrangement with a neighboring community, which we're trying to do. We're trying to discuss one now with New Berlin and with Muskego. We have one in place with McGuanago. All we have to do is solidify that one. That would protect the town, not so much now, but in the future. So there's a town of Vernon 50 or 60, 70 years from now, when we're gone, there will still be a town of Vernon. There's the possibility would be there that it would be gradually eroded away like the town of Brookfield. The town of Brookfield right now started out like the town of Vernon, 36 square miles, is now 5 square miles. That's all that's left of the town of Brookfield. So that's what we're trying to eliminate, is trying to make sure that there is a town of Vernon in the future.
Thank you. You actually answered the question, how does it benefit or hinder also at the same time? The only question, Bill, I'll ask you this one. Seeing that we had an agreement with McGuanago, were the people in the affected area notified?
Were they notified?
Yes.
We had, going back to a newsletter, what's the date on that? This was a newsletter back in 2017. Not only talked about the discussion with McGuanago, but it showed a map, a potential map of what the boundary might look like. So, okay, I got the power on. But anyway, this was in 2017. Since then, I tallied up some data. We have something like 33 notifications via our board agendas. Our board agendas are always online. They're posted at the town hall, online, and other various, access points to it. So every resident has an opportunity to find out what's on the agenda. And then in addition to those 33 announcements, an agenda means we discuss them. If they're actually on the agenda, they're there for discussion. So anyone coming to the meeting hears discussion. There were also about, in the area, 15 or 16 meetings where these things were noted as coming up in closed session. During the meeting, in the closed session, the residents cannot sit in on it, but the term border agreement been out there for a long time. In fact, there was talk as early as 1992 between Town of Vernon and Village of McGuanago about border agreements, although they never got to the agreement stage. So it's not a new issue. It's been out there published,
And there was a letter sent to the people who were going to be involved with the potential border agreement, were notified as such. Then we had 2 public hearings held at the Village of McGuanago, and those were publicly announced as well for anyone, Vernon, McGuanago, anyone to come in, make comments, yeas or nays, however they wanted to. And I've got to say, a lot of the people affected were there, but a lot of the other residents didn't seem to have the interest. So there's been a lot of publicity out there about this border agreement, and basically, based upon that input, we did reach an agreement with McGuanago. There is some concern by people as to the amount of land. A border agreement, we have to understand, as a town, this board didn't want to give up a half-acre of it. Just didn't want to. But we're not negotiating from a position of strength. You're not.
Sorry.
Thank you, Bill.
You get dinged.
Mr. Byrne, how much land and acres or sections has McGuanago and Big Bend annexed from the town of Vernon since 2002 to present? And do we have take a wait and see position or take aggressive action to halt it if possible, and by what means?
Since, I gotta look at this, we did some research on this. Since 2002, there were 3,700 acres that have gone to the village of Big Bend and the village of McGuanago between them. And that is equivalent, there's 640 acres in a section. So that's equivalent to about 6 sections. And what was the other part of that question? So that's, if you think about it, that's a lot of acreage since 2002.
So do we take a wait and see position, take aggressive action? I believe
That, you know,
you're taking it.
and that's 15 years. That's all it took. And the town is still here, yes, but you can see the border, that what it looks like around Big Bend. For a zoning or planning standpoint, it's absolutely terrible. So to let it go another 6, who knows, maybe it'll be more. But we do have an idea that's going along with the border agreement on how to minimize the area around Big Bend. You want me to go into that, or?
You can.
1 minute. Well, I'll save that for another question. Yeah, I'll save that.
Mr. Wilde, what is the village of McGuanago looking for in a border agreement with Vernon?
Well, I think what they're looking for is future expansion. As everybody knows, the village of McGuanago is a growing community. Right now, they're emphasizing going down 83 and north and south on 83. When that gets fully developed, then they're going to be looking elsewhere, and that elsewhere is going to be towards the east, which is Vernon. And we got a map that came from the village of McGuanago right here. This is future minimum water requirements. This shows water mains and sewer systems all the way up to Center Road. That's what they're using as a basis of their future development. This comes from the village of McGuanago. That's what their intentions are. Their intentions are to move into the town of Vernon as far as they can go. I mean, you don't plan to put water mains and sewer lines up this far if you don't have intentions of taking up that land. So that's why we sat down with McGuanago and said, we need to have some discussions about solidifying a border agreement with you to stop this from happening. This would be half the town. Half the town would be disappeared into the village of McGuanago. This isn't a this is history. This is a fact. This was printed by their engineering company. So they had plans of what they wanted to do in the future. All we were trying to do was get them to agree that we knew we had to give up something. You know, when you go into a negotiations, there's always give and take, and we went in there knowing that we were going to have to give, but we gave up as little as possible of what we thought we would be able to get agreed with them, and I think this will work. This will work fine, and it protects the western borders of the town of Vernon. It's going to affect some people more so than others, but in reality, it'll protect the entire town, so the town is still here.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, if Vernon, maybe we've already answered, but let's ask it again. If Vernon does nothing to protect its borders, what do you think will happen to us as a municipality?
Well, if we do nothing as far as border agreements, like I mentioned before, we're pretty powerless as a township because we're out there to be eaten alive. That's why townships are the way they are. And you can see from, say, the Village of Hills Corners, for example, they've got nothing left to annex along their borders or the village, and their tax rate's sky high. They've got nowhere to go. So, with them feasting on us, as Gary said earlier, we're at the bottom of the food chain. We can't do a legal thing about it if they're properly filing the annexation and if they're contiguous to the town of Vernon. So the question raised, what can we do about it? We really can't do anything except number one, border agreements, and number two, Tom mentioned before, we'll all be getting a flyer in the mail in the next several days talking about amended zoning. And what that amended zoning amounts to is the Plan Commission and the Town Board getting together with the planner and coming up with zoning options. Right now we have a lot of land adjacent to Big Bend where you can not do anything with less than an acre. So Big Bend can put the teaser out there and say, hey, you come by us, we can get 2 buildable lots per acre, whereas in Vernon 1, or maybe we're at 3 or 5 acre density in some of these places. We've got the authority now, without the county ruling our zoning, to vote for a little more density just along adjacent parts with Big Bend. So where's the incentive then to go to Big Bend at 4 times the tax rate? There isn't. Right now, they can deceive people into thinking they're going to get sewer, which they're not going to get in my lifetime, or they can lead people on by saying, hey, come to us, we'll let you divide your farm into smaller parcels, and you're going to make this much money. Happened right next door to me in Vernon, and, okay, I've got 1 minute left. We had a 3 to 5 acre density north of our property on a 4 acre site. We now have 4 village properties backing up to us, all 1 acre, pushing their stuff into my property. That's what happens if you have no control over annexations and no border. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Byrd, around 15 years ago, the town of Vernon was given the opportunity in a referendum to advise the town board if they would support merging with the village of Big Bend. What was the outcome of that referendum and why? But also, another question was asked along the same line. What was the driving factor in this consolidation effort that took place while some of tonight's candidates were on Vernon's town board between 2000 and 2002? What did they hope to achieve and for whom? And he continued and said, certainly not for the typical Vernon homeowner who is going to be saddled with significant higher property taxes long term by merging with Big Bend. It's a long question, but please explain.
Well, if you go back and you look at what was going on, there was a FICO annexation, there was an incorporation attempt, then there was a consolidation attempt, then there was with the 2 consolidation, which was Vernon and Big Bend, a border agreement with Waterville, and that's what was driving it, because Big Bend wanted sewer, and they wanted sewer for 164 and National. They call it their golden triangle, okay? And all of that was rolled up into getting sewer. They were gonna, over in Hidden Lakes, they wanted, and that's what the disguise was. They were gonna give sewer to Hidden Lakes. They were gonna give it to the people, meaning they were gonna get it. That's what they were gonna do. They weren't giving it, they were gonna get it. And they were gonna deadhead it on National Avenue. Then in the agreement itself, it said that they needed no more of the people's approval. It was the village board of McGuanago and the consolidated town of Vernon and village of Big Bend, and they could do whatever they wanted with that sewer line. That's the crooks what was driving that consolidation, them to get sewer. And the documents are, I've got the documents and we've got them online if the people want to read those documents. And I don't know if the members that were on the board at that time, some of them might have not been privy to that stuff. I don't know. Because I had to dig for these documents and I found them. And I was, when I read them, I, wow, you know, it was really, okay.
Thank you. Hearing, Mr. Wiley, could the extension of sanitary sewer into the Hidden Lakes area, which was suggested at the public hearings in McGuanago, open the door to expanding the availability of sanitary service outside the immediate Hidden Lakes area into other areas east and south of its subdivision? Also, how could a former supervisor say that the town board should have sought sewer and water for Hidden Lakes area without having asked their association or the individual homeowners in that area what they wanted? I believe he didn't give 2 cents for what they wanted, but he noticed that Big Bend wanted to get sewer through Vernon and then extended to Big Bend because they were up to, I couldn't even repeat the rest of it. That's, I want to even.
Yeah, kind of.
Should I repeat
Shrink it down a little bit, yeah. There's a whole bunch of questions there.
Go ahead. The question is, why would somebody do that, in other words?
At that time?
Yeah.
Well, I was on the board at that time, 1996, 97, around in there when this happened. A lot of what happened within the board at that time didn't come forward to the board. There were some negotiations that were done outside the parameters of the board, which wouldn't happen today because of the Chapter 5 that the town board put in place to protect everybody on the board from knowing exactly what's going on. But anyway, the people in Hidden Lakes didn't want sewers at all. You know, I remember that sitting and talking with some of the people at a homeowners association up there. They were totally opposed to the sewers up there, as naturally they would be, because the cost was going to be astronomical. They were going to have to pay for the lines, they were going to have to pay for all the laterals and everything, and they didn't want it, they didn't need it. There were a couple of homes up there that were failing, that were on holding tanks, but the majority of the situation up there was going to be handled through mound systems if the current systems failed. It was just a stow job. There was somebody was trying to sell us a bill of goods and said that they would eventually, what Tom was saying, the sewer lines would come down National Avenue. And what the whole primary purpose of this was is to get sewer lines up to I-43 and down National Avenue to I-43. And that's what the whole purpose of this whole thing was. But the people in Hidden Lakes, Hidden Lakes would have been drastically affected by this because they were going to be forced into sewers that they didn't want. And I think that's why part of why the consolidation effort failed is that the people in Vernon said no, they didn't want any part of this. And the people in Big Bend didn't want any part of Vernon because they didn't want to lose their identity. That's what we heard a lot of at that time. We don't want to lose Big Bend's identity. We don't want to be Vernon. We want to stay Big Bend. So the referendum failed.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, what are the candidates, what are you latest ideas on how the town of Vernon would get a border agreement with the village of Big Bend. I know it was touched on prior, but could you expound a little bit on that?
Okay, they're obviously going to be the hardest nut to crack. Part of the reasons what Gary was saying, their identity thing. They're in financial desperate straits right now. If you look at the numbers, you look at their budget, a lot of things not even showing on their budget for capital improvements, things of that sort. But the issue comes down to they either have too much pride or they still have heartburn over the fire department issue, which I think is the biggest thing. They have heartburn. And there were problems with that fire department. That's why I ran for this board in the first place. Because the fire department was not operating very well. That's all I'm going to say right now. That's been improved tremendously. But the issue is, because of some of those back episodes, it's going to be very hard to get them to come to a border agreement table. And that's part of the reason we're talking about this amendment to zoning you'll be getting in the mail, a flyer. Hopefully all of you and many more can get to those open meetings we're going to have on it. That's to discuss some of the options we have to increase density along the Big Bend border, where we can maybe offer half-acre lots to a developer before he jumps into Big Bend. At our tax rate, 1/4 Big Bends, if the land's in our town now, it's good land, we've got a lot of incentive to be able to get these people in. Whereas right now, with leaving our zoning where it is, which most of the town that's R1 is 1 acre minimum, it's going to be tough to negotiate. So we're going to have to do this around the back way, in the sense that totally up and up, but we're going to have to sit down as a plan commission board and with the knowledge of the taxpayers say, hey, we're going to have to back off of some zoning, but only on those fringe areas with Big Bend. None of us on the board want to become a non-rural area. We want to stay as rural as we can. But to compete with no other power left, we either have a border agreement, which is going to be tough with them, or we're going to have to use a zoning method to do it. And it's an issue, it's an ongoing issue, and they came to us. There's some misinformation out there, but they came to us about 3 months ago. They wanted us to put together a contract with them to do ALS, or emergency. We've got 22, 23 paramedics, they have none. And we put together an agreement and made it clear with them, you will not be paying any more than our town of Vernon residents pay. So we put together a fair deal. They came back and they colored the thinking of the residents in Big Bend. They came back and said, oh, we can do it much cheaper in Vernon.
Thank you, Don. It's quite, Tom Bird, please. What do you know about the situation on Crowbar Road and the town of Vernon residents that live there?
There's 2 entities over on that side of town. That would be the east side of town. There's Muskego, City of Muskego, and City of Berlin. On Crowbar Road, the City of Muskego doesn't own to the center of the road. They own the right-of-way. Crowbar runs north-south. On the west side, they own the right-of-way. So we've got a situation over there where if people have traveled down it, they know that those aprons in those ditches are asphalt because it's a pretty steep hill. And we've got a situation where some of those culverts and the end walls of the culverts are washing out. The culverts are deteriorating. The people need some relief, but they go to us. They say, we can't help you. We don't own that right away. They go to the City of Muskego. Muskego tells them, oh, we'll put you on the list. So they have no recourse. So what? Town board, we talked about it. I said, go over there and talk to them. We had a meeting with them. And we worked something out with the DPW. Now, we've got stormwater money that we can use into there and that. It's going to be about we figure if the people pay for the culverts anyways, whether Muskego does it or the town of Vernon does it, and we still give them the option if they want to get their own contractor to do it, and for their gravel and digging, and if they got the machines and stuff like that, they can do it all themselves. All they gotta do is get a permit from John. But I had an idea that maybe we could talk with the DPW, and when we were in that conversation with the DPW, we talked about tree trimming and talked about this and that. And I mentioned to them about, well, we'd like to sit down with the mayor and talk this over, not just the DPW, and maybe we could parlay this into some type of an agreement. So that's what we're working on. We're working on giving those people, priority one is we got something worked out over there with their DPW and our DPW to help them with their culverts this spring. Second priority is we're gonna see if we can get something with a border agreement with them.
Thank you. Gary, how successful has the present town board been in keeping the increase in town property taxes relatively low over the past 10 years?
Well, I can't speak for 10 years, but I can speak for the last years that I've been on, and we've been extremely diligent, and people don't realize how many meetings we sit in here at budget hearings. We have 8-10 meetings where we take the budget line item by line item, and we look at each category and each department and each person's request for money. And since I've been on the board, the taxes have gone up, I think about 6 cents over close to 4 years. This last year, they're going to go up from $2.11 to $2.14 per thousand, 3 cents, and that does with no borrowing. This is the first year in quite some time that we're not borrowing any money for any ongoing projects. We have enough money from leftover funds from last year and through budget savings and everything that we're going to buy another ambulance this year. We're going to supply the fire department with the majority of the needs that they asked for. The DPW is getting the equipment that they asked for, and we're not borrowing any more money, which is a big savings to the taxpayers. Plus, we didn't raise taxes, but just like 2 or 3 cents on the, I think, $2.14 per thousand, which is significantly low, one of the lowest ones in the Waukesha County. Town of Waukesha is probably lower than us, but they don't provide the same services that we do. I'm extremely happy with, and I've had people come up and say, thank you for keeping my taxes low. You know, we can't do anything about the school board taxes. Those are generated through the school board, and we know that those are extremely high. But as far as the town goes, we're trying very diligently to keep taxes in the town of Vernon at a reasonable level, so that we keep people living here. We don't want to have, like the city of Waukesha, talked to a friend of mine, he's moving out of the city of Waukesha because the rates are so high you can't afford to live there any longer. So that's what we don't want to have happen here. So,
thank you. Mr. Craig, how does the Vernon's property tax compare with, let's say, the village of Big Bend and also the village of McGuanago?
Well, McGuanago and Big Bend, village of McGuanago and Big Bend are very close. They're at about $8, and I'm going to take a stab close. $8.40 a thousand. Town of Vernon, after our budget, now we're at $2.15 a thousand. So we're at about 25%. The only thing we don't have is I'll use the word cop, a cop on the road looking for radar pickups. So I think as a board, we're open to anyone suggesting different ideas to keep taxes lower. But Gary made a very good point. I was always real impressed with town of Waukesha, who's, I can't quote their rate exactly, but they're probably at about $198 a thousand, somewhere in there. Impressive. And don't get me wrong, they're a nice township, nice board members and that, but we've had a couple of meetings because they asked us to consider working with them on a DPW basis. This was within the last year. That didn't work out. However, as we were meeting and discussing different issues, we became aware that they don't have the personnel they should. They only had one full-timer, DPW, and he was going to part-time, and they were debating whether to hire another person. They literally could not keep up with the maintenance they needed to do. And they were not doing curbside cutting like we're doing, nothing with rubbish branch pickup, any of that stuff. So Waukesha is at a great point in the tax rate, but they're not providing the services we have as well. So I have a couple of thoughts how we can get our tax rate probably down a little more, but we'll wait to see if that comes up. But that's kind of an idea. So you look at Big Bend Village, you look at McGuanago Village. If you study cities and villages, I've never seen a case where they can compete anywhere near with townships. Townships are run, you people vote on the budget every year. That's very unique and good about a township. That's the United States of America. Townships, the voters vote directly for the budget. You can't do that in a village or a city. You elect an alderman, he makes the decision on your spending and taxation, and you live with it, unless you get him out of office and get someone else in. So we've got that blessing of having the power of the voters to come to the annual budget meeting and can speak your part if you want to cut back on road aid, road repairs, or DPW expenses. You have a right to vote on those issues. So hopefully we can keep the rates low and still provide all the services. Vernon has a lot of services. Very clean, well-kept community.
Thank you. Mr. Bird, what has the present town board done to assure that every taxpayer dollar coming in or going out must necessarily be accounted for and scrutinized? Why was such action necessary?
Well, we, first off, have we revisited our Chapter 23-4, which is finance. And that we made sure that every dollar that comes in that's in the budget before it gets spent comes to the town board. And we also have chapter 5, which also says that nobody can change any invoices without town board approval. So those are two things, that are pretty much, you would think people know that and can't do that. But I've seen situations at the town here where some of that stuff has gone on. And, but now we have ordinances that we have recourse if that happens again, that we can get it fixed.
Thank you. Gary, concerning Chapter 5, to what extent has the present town board created and codified the ordinance that restrict the conduct of Vernon's public officials from acting in a manner that does not represent the interest of all the residents of the town of Vernon, and where public officials can be held legally accountable for their actions? Over to Chapter 5.
Right. Chapter 5, you want, or what Chapter 5 is?
Yes.
Well, like Tom had said, Chapter 5 is an ordinance that was put in place just probably prior to me getting on the board, but it makes it almost impossible for a supervisor to go outside the parameters of the board and do anything without the rest of the board. The town chairman, in the past, there was a few town chairmen that had done some things that were not, the board wasn't informed of. They weren't told what was happening. And Chapter 5, I think, eliminates that. It puts transparency into the whole operation of the board. One person can't go out and negotiate a contract. The town chairman could have, in the past, could have went and made a contract with so-and-so for, and I think it happened. There was some instance where the town chairman made some deals and the town board didn't know anything about it. And that Chapter 5 eliminated. You can be booted out of office now if you get caught doing something like that. I mean, it's just a case of, it's a protection for the people and the residents of the town of Vernon. We want to have good government, and we want to have legal government. People that obey the law, and we're the prime example. We sit up here and we make the rules and the regulations for the residents of the town, and by gosh, we better live up to what we're doing, or we can be held totally accountable for it. And that Chapter 5 protects the town residents for anything like that happening in the future.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, if a public official inadvertently receives an overpayment by the town board, should that official be expected to repay the amount overpaid to them, especially if it is a significant amount of money to taxpayers? The board just write it up as a mistake. But there's a second opinion on that. The board recently voted to refer the treasurer mileage issue to the county sheriff's department. Do you feel that the board is at all responsible for the situation, since they approved the treasurer's request for reimbursement for years without scrutinizing them at the time of approval? So it's a two-sided question, basically.
Could you just give me a summary of that?
I know it's a lot. What they're saying is, should they be repaying the amount,
The overpayment.
or should it be just let go because it was approved
As a town employee.
monthly? Okay.
Okay, to be frugally correct, first of all, this town is nothing but a small business. We've got to have checks and balances. If we find something, even retroactively, which was the case here, and we know about it, we've got an obligation to go back and correct that. Okay, if it slid past the board, on the AP pile, we go through, anyone who watches our meetings, a couple of us really go through those in detail. This got through with more mileage it should have, and it's now been discovered. I definitely feel that should be rectified by the individual involved, because that could happen again in the future, and we're not infallible. There are things we can miss, and I think the person should come forward and say, here, I want to make good for my community, and as an employee of Town of Vernon, I want it to be done right and squared up. So I think that is the right way to do it.
Thank you. Mr. Byrd, can the town chair decide not to allow a town supervisor to place an item or items on the town board meeting agenda?
Well, you could decide it, but I don't think that would fly. Number one, there actually is, in the ordinance, it says that a town supervisor, and even people, the rank and file public, can put anything on the agenda if they would like to do so. Town board members frequently, you'll see that it states that they're supposed to have it in by noon Thursday. Okay. But frequently they talk, they think, and when Monday morning comes around, everything goes through the clerk. Karen will call me and we'll go over and we'll finalize the agenda. And she goes, well, I got a request from so-and-so. I got a request from so-and-so. I said, okay. It's not clear to me what they're looking for. Can you call them back, and we'll go back and forth like that, and we'll get what the board member wanted on the agenda, and it goes on there. I've never, ever kept anybody from putting anything on the agenda for the board to talk about. I believe that's the way this is supposed to work.
Thank you. Mr. Wilde, similar question, can the town chair negotiate on his own without town board approval?
Yeah.
Can
Can?
the town chair, the chairman, negotiate on his own without town board approval?
No. I'll say that
Simple
emphatically.
answer.
And Tom is the first one that will sit up here and say that he won't do it. We've had some situations, even, I'll give you just an example. We're on this coming agenda for this coming Thursday, we're gonna be okaying a contract for cleaning the floors and doing the, that came before the town board, and we had to all look at it, and we determined that the price was right and everything, and then we authorized the town chairman to sign the contract. In past, the town chairman could have signed that contract and gone ahead and done it, and we wouldn't have known about it until we got the bill in the next month. This way, there's no negotiations. He doesn't do negotiations. When we were in negotiations with the town of with McGuanago and with other communities, Tom came to us and he asked a couple of the board members to go with him, who wanted to volunteer to go with him to these negotiations. He didn't go by himself. He went with another board member. So it's an open and above board, and everything we try to do, and we don't do anything behind closed doors. We have closed sessions because the things we talk about sometimes are sensitive to the point where if it gets out, too many rumors or too many misinformation gets out there. But the majority of what we do is up front, right out here on the 2 Thursdays of the month, and people have an opportunity to come in here and question us. If they have some interest in what we're doing, we don't hide behind anything. I mean, we're here to answer God. We're available by phone. I answer the phone. My wife answers it, which she doesn't like, but I get the phone calls, and I call people back. If they have a question, and if I have a problem, I'll take it to the board and ask Tom, should we put this on the agenda or thing? And we talk about it, and determine how we're gonna approach it. There's nothing done in secret in regard to our actions by the board.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, is the town chair in most cases obligated by law to fully inform the town board on all matters as soon as possible and to get other supervisors' approval before acting?
What, are you talking some specific types of issues?
No, it's a general question.
Oh, I would say ethically, definitely. As far as state law, I could not tell you. But ethically, if there is no conflict of interest, then it should not be done.
Okay, thank
It
you.
should go to the board.
Mr. Vernon, should the Vernon Planning Commission have the right to make recommendations directly to the county without town board review?
There's an ex-chairman out in the seating out there that when he was on the board, I was on the board with him, and that's one of the things with the Planning Commission that was, I wouldn't say an issue with him, but really upset him is that the Planning Commission, which was appointed, not elected, it was appointed members on the Planning Commission, were making calls and approving things, and it was going directly to the county. And the town board would never get a chance to approve it till after the county sent it back. So the Planning Commission said it's okay. Town board was just like a rubber stamp. So that's why now we have 3 members, we have a quorum on the Planning Commission. And lately, to speed up the process for the 2 weeks, we've been holding joint Plan Commission / town board, so we can act on it that same night.
Thank you. Mr. Wilde, what was the hidden danger in the effort to create the Fox River subdivision that the Vernon Planning Commission recommended to the county some years ago? It eventually languished because of the economic turndown in 2008.
well, I don't think I wasn't on the board at that time, so I don't know what you're talking about down by, on Edgewood Avenue there,
No, I think it was off of L, I mean,
Fox River Woods?
yeah, I wasn't on the town board. I have no idea how that transpired, how that came about, in regard to that. I know that, the people that had that property down there, that was the Krogstad property, if I'm not mistaken. That was gonna stay, she wanted to stay in the town, but then there was a family situation and they sold the land and a developer came in and annexed into the village of McGuanago. You know, they brought sewer across the river and sewered that whole area there, and I believe that was their intention, is to keep on going. You know, that was going to stop there. That's why with this border agreement, you know, that might put a little bit of a crimp in their plans in regard to future expansion. But I really wasn't around at that time. I don't know what happened too much there, Merle.
okay, thank you. Bill, do you know anything about that?
Yeah.
Well, Fox River Woods, from my recollection, is off of L down the golf course, Edgewood Golf Course. And there was an issue there, we had to spend some legal fees because there was a road, as I recall, that was not an actual public road. And someone was trying to develop back in there. And that's where they ran into a roadblock. And there had been development efforts prior to that for someone coming in and building ranch condominiums on slab because the soils were so questionable. They had soil ones. So the subsoils were not good in the first place, and then the issue of the road came up as a later problem. And I know we had to get the attorney involved in there because there had been a road bond put forward by the supposed developer at the time. So we had to make some claims to recoup some of that road bond.
Tom, do you know anything about that?
Well, I wasn't on the board at the time when that situation was going on. But I remember being at the meetings and the boards were talking about it. And that had a unique septic system in it where those two family units were all hooked up to a septic, different septics, one septic system. And the county wanted the town to have and make a sewer district. And what a sewer district is, it says that, okay, the developer would have built it, would have turned it over to the town, and now, if they have problems with it, the town fixes it. Well, that didn't fly. And then there was an economic downturn, and that whole thing went in the crapper.
Appropriate.
Well, I start back with you, Mr. Vernon. Why do we have a water committee? What is its purpose? Has any candidate suggested eliminating this committee as an unnecessary expense?
Well, Water Committee was, again, brought to be for checking the head heights, meaning the distance the water comes up in the pipe. And it's to get the data so we can tell what the drawdowns are and what the run-ups are during the spring. And we've got data now from 2009 from its inception, and we're still doing monitoring now. Matter of fact, if anybody wants to get on the monitoring there, we'll take, we've got sections that we need people in, some people have left, some people have sold, but see me or see the clerk and we can get you an application. But the reasoning it was for is to monitor exactly what it says, monitor the head heights so we know water table in the town. If anything ever happens to, if somebody develops, say, McGuanago, and they wanna put a water tower in, which they have on some of those sections, which outside, they've got water towers there. If you don't have any data, and they put a high capacity well in, and the people around there in the town, their wells start going dry, they start sucking air and they don't pump, what recourse do you have? The first thing they'll say is, well, it's your high capacity well. McGuanago will say, prove it. How do you prove if you don't have any data? It's minimal. The budget for it is $3,500 a month or a year, and I can't ever remember using all of that. It started out at 5 and it's gone progressively lower and lower, and I'm getting older now. I don't go out and do the monitoring myself anymore, but I do look at the results on it and make sure it's tabulated correctly. But we've switched that when 2 years ago, I asked the town board to switch it from myself doing it to the DPW. Two of the guys do it on DPW now.
Thank you. Mr. Wilding, this is kind of a general question between the members or people that are here. So as a board member, do you think it's appropriate to disparage and or insult residents of the town of Vernon? I don't know what the meaning of it is, but
Disparage?
disparage
Well,
or insult residents.
as you can see tonight, we haven't even mentioned any of the candidates aren't here. You know, that's, as far as I'm concerned, they're not here, they can't answer the question, so I'm not disparaging anybody. You know, they have every right to run for the office against us, you know, which we encourage people to do. If you're not happy, you know, that's the democratic way. You run, but I'm not going to sit up here and insult anybody, you know, because they decided to run, or I don't have any intentions of criticizing their performance and for past efforts that they've done. Everybody can look up the records for each one of these people that are candidates and make their own determination, and that's how this country's run. Is you determine. There's enough insulting going on in this country, back and forth, without getting down to the grassroots level that we're at. No, we're not becoming millionaires in these jobs. We're just sitting up here trying to do what's in the best interest of the residents of the community. And I encourage anybody, you know, the three people that are running against us three here, I encourage them to participate, you know, and give us their views. I'd be happy to hear from them. You know, I wouldn't insult them. I think that they have every right in the world to be here and discuss their opinions. They must have opposite opinions of us, or they would be running against us, I would think. You know, so I would never insult anybody for trying to run for one of these offices, because it takes a lot of gumption just to put your name on the ballot, put your name on a list. You know, so I encourage anybody who's interested in doing that to do it.
Thank you. There's another question from the audience. I'm not going to ask it, but it's along the same line. It says, did the new candidates not show because they have no solutions to the board agreement? But I think you really answered that question. If they aren't here, you don't know.
Yeah, I can't.
So we'll ask that at the next one.
Okay, good.
Mr. Craig, how do you plan to build bridges for the Vernon residents offended by the board's actions and attitudes in the past? In other words, other boards that you may not have been involved with that did some things that maybe somebody didn't think was right. Now, how do you repair that for the people now?
To build bridges with those prior boards?
Well, with the residents that didn't agree with what the prior boards maybe did or did, or maybe they agreed with, I don't know. It's again a general question, and just boards from the past, I know.
Well, I'll try to answer it as directly as I can. To me, it's part of the solution is to have people come forward with their concerns. Whether they're past board concerns, this board concerns. And I actually thank people when they do call me with concerns or complaints, because it means our taxpayers are out there watching and listening. That's fantastic. I always return the calls if I miss the call directly. And And I encourage people, if they want to meet me at the town hall, meet me in my office one-on-one. I have done everything by my best conscience for 8 years. I'm not going to change that now. So we may have differing opinions, but I'd sure like to hear if there are people who are disappointed or upset about certain things. It would be good to hear them.
Thank you, Bill. Mr. Bird, could you explain why one of our residents had to call the town chairman to request help in obtaining his escrow check in order to pay his January 2019 house payment?
Well, we had a situation that we had a resident that he called me, and his escrow check that was from the bank, he was wondering where it was, because the escrow check is refunded, and he was hoping that I could do something about it. Well, I looked into the matter a little bit, and they were here, and we managed to take that situation and get those checks with the clerk's office processed, and we then called the person up, and he came down and he personally picked that check up. Now, as far as the process goes, that's another elected official who, for whatever, I don't know, something fell between the cracks there. But when I was contacted and heard about it, we did what it needed to do, and I think it was 48 hours he had his money.
Thank you. Mr. Quilty, the town of Vernon Fire Department is 10 years old. How would you rate its success in terms of cost, and more importantly, how its effectiveness and stature in our town and all of southeastern Wisconsin are reviewed?
Well, you picked a good question to ask me. I was on the fire department for 15 years, from 1980 to 1996 when I ran for the town board here, and it wasn't the same department that it is now. We have a highly efficient professional department right now. I was just looking at the roster here. I have the roster here of the personnel that's on there. We have over 20 paramedics that are on this fire department. That's more than almost any other department in the county of Waukesha, other than probably the city of Waukesha. People come to our community that want to be on our fire department, not because it pays so good or anything like that, but they get the opportunity to utilize their skills. We get people that come into this community that join our fire department that are already have got their license. We don't even have to pay for their training or their education. They already have it when they get here. We've taken advantage of using them to their best of their ability and to the residents' satisfaction. They get the benefits of this. We have working agreements with other communities that we provide paramedic services to the town of Waterford, to the city, to the town of East Troy, to the town of Waukesha, to a couple other communities offhand, and they don't have paramedics. We provide it. We have an intercept program. They pay for it, but we provide the people. We have some of the best people possible, and economic. It doesn't cost us all that much. Your taxes are paying for our fire department, but we have go down and look at that equipment that we have and the people we have. They're a wonderful bunch of men and women who are giving everything they can to provide the best professional service for this community. And I was proud to be on the department, but I'm really more proud of them right now for what they represent for our community.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, someone authored or penned the intermunicipal agreement in a last-ditch effort to save the Vernon Big Bend Fire Department almost 20 years ago. Is there anything significant that we can learn from this?
You mean significance as far as where we're at now?
Whether it was good for us, bad for us, good for Big Bend, bad
Oh.
for Big Bend?
Well, I can't judge the effort that was made or the motivation, but looking where we're at now versus staying with an intermunicipal agreement, joint department, we're talking day and night. I mean, right now, I don't hear, and I don't know if anybody on it says, I don't hear one negative comment verbally. I see nothing in the press negative about our department. That wasn't the case years ago. And I don't think an intermunicipal agreement would patch up the problems we had. Without getting into details, there were a lot of problems there. And the intermunicipal agreement might have been well intended at the time, but I don't think it would have put us where we are now. We had professionals come in here. We did have to pay in the area of $20,000, I believe, to have expert people come in who had fire department background, fire chief background, personnel background, and they basically wrote a booklet for us on how to get a department operating properly, and that's how we got off the ground with that. So, yeah, as far as an intermunicipal agreement, it might have been a good effort, a well-intended effort. I don't think it, in the long run, would have solved any of the problems. Because like I said before, we've got some heartburn problems here, big time. And those aren't going away easy. And no agreement is going to solve that. No written agreement is going to solve that. We've got issues that go beyond.
Thank you. Mr. Bird, this is a little long-winded one. It says, to what extent was the old Big Bend Vernon Fire Department controlled through the fire board created by the intermunicipal agreement? Didn't it create a nightmare for Vernon by giving Big Bend 3 out of 8 members on that fire board? So that all the Big Bend had to do was get one member of Vernon's 5 members to go along with Big Bend, and they could block or force a compromise on every issue concerning the joint fire department. Remember, Vernon owned 83% of that old fire department.
So what was the question?
Well, it looks like somebody was very interested in it, and
Well, granted, the intermunicipal agreement, when I got out of the department, I read it, and that was in '09. I think it was penned in '02, and the previous one said before it was a last-ditch effort, and I believe that. And okay, there were things in there that were considerations, and I wasn't on the department at the time, and I don't know what the politics of the department at the time, but I do know that the fire board was appointed, and they were pretty much unto themselves with a $700,000 budget. The town paid 83% of it, the village paid 17% of it. And what really drove the fire departments apart and that thing is that the fire board wanted $2,000 for attorney fees for the fire department and $2,000 themselves put in the budget. And I said, no way. And the rest of the board said, no way. Because if we would have given them the money, they would have been able to hire an attorney because it's in their budget, and then we don't have anything to say about it. Because you got attorney-client privilege. We didn't hire them, fire board hired them. Town was just paying. They were just on the hook, and we said, definitely not. And the village says, yeah, we want it. And we said, no, pull it out of there, and we won't split. They didn't take it out. So we walked.
thank you. Mr. Gary, There was some opposition to the creation of an independent fire department. It was said that the result of such a move would have a disastrous consequences, that Vernon would lose paramedic service, that insurance rates would go up, that the response time would increase dramatically, that the financial costs would be outrageous, and that people might die as a result. That any of these disastrous consequences happen.
You mean all those rumors that said that we would lose services, and we've increased services. Services have gotten better, not because we split, but because of the management of the fire department. They've got, like I mentioned before, the personnel that they've recruited have gone and done an outstanding job of performing outside the parameters of what most fire departments do. I mean, our fire department was at the city of Waukesha this morning helping with that fire on Arcadian Avenue where 3 people were found dead. This is, we get requested to help mutual aid all over this county practically. And it's not because they're bad. It's a good fire department. And response time is unbelievable. We get to some calls in the town of Waukesha before they even get out of their fire station on Center Drive there. It's amazing. You know, I've talked to the chief and I've talked to some of the members of the fire department, and we got people in our stations 7 days a week, 24/7. There's people in that station. As soon as an alarm comes in, we're out of there. You know, other stations, other communities, they have to get the people to come in and respond. We're halfway to the scene before most of the people are even into their station. So response times are better, equipment's better, training's better, management's better, all the way down the line. When I was on the fire department, it was a good old boys, and I was one of the good old boys. It was a good old boy situation. The guys got elected because maybe he was good friends of Joe Blow, you know, and everybody liked you. You know, so that doesn't happen now. Now you have to have professional qualifications. We have an assistant fire chief who is the second in command in Franklin Fire Department. I mean, you don't get these guys to walk in off the street because they're looking for a job. They're there because they like being, serving, and working and operating with our fire department.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, what are your thoughts as to why the town of Vernon offered fire service to the village of Big Bend during the past year? Who approached the other first and why?
Who approached who?
Yeah.
Well, the Big Bend, I think it was 2 members of the Big Bend Village Board approached us, came to a meeting, and requested that we put some numbers together. And as I recall, they wanted 2 potential numbers. One was to provide ALS service, advanced paramedic service. The other one was to provide full fire coverage service. So we put together a bid. The board spent quite a bit of time with the fire chief and assistant chief, put together a proposal. And as I said earlier in our forum here, we assured them that their cost per rescue call would be exactly the same per individual as it is for our own residents in Vernon. And that's exactly how we quoted it. I forget how long it took. We sent a written response over there, and it wasn't more than a couple of weeks. The rumblings were, well, in fact, if I'm not mistaken, someone can correct me. I think one of the board members talked to the paper about it and basically said, well, we looked it over, we can do it much cheaper. And those of us who on the board here who watch their budget, their fire budget, what happens activity-wise, we know there's no way they're going to come close to the service we've got for the money they're looking for. So basically, we gave them as fair a price as we could, and anyone's welcome to come in and check our records, read our contact with them, and they just decided, oh no, we can do it less. And some of you might have seen the little red and white signs around town, support your fire department. We all want to support our fire department, whoever it is. But the intent of that sign had nothing to do with just, we love Big Bend's fire department. The intent was to tell people, don't go anywhere else looking for help. That's the bottom line. They had one in Citizens Bank parking lot, they had them all over the place. So someone turned our intent and words around, and they basically rejected it, which is fine. We did the best we can. And the same thing with the fire department as a whole. They claim they can run a department for less than what we're quoting them. Can't happen. Not a department like we have here.
Thank you, Bill. Well, that's, questions that I've received and what has come from the audience. We'll go to exit. Okay.
Yes,
Bill, why
question
don't you
here.
go first on that?
Karen, I emailed several questions in.
It didn't go to the
I
clerk.
emailed this afternoon, before 4 o'clock this afternoon. I have a copy of them if you care to read them.
Sure.
Did you mail them to me, Jane?
I emailed them to the forum.
Okay, yeah.
Well, I was here at 5 o'clock, so I wasn't on the computer at 4 o'clock.
Good question.
You can go right down the line.
You have a heading at the top. You want me to read that too?
Pardon me?
Do you want him to read the heading, Jane?
Paragraph.
That's a question.
Just a question.
That is a question.
Oh, okay, I misunderstood. Residents of the McGuanago Town of Vernon border agreement public hearings expressed concerns, lack of communication, the board not getting input from those residents directly affected, not answering residents' questions, and not addressing their concerns, to name just a few. What, if anything, will you do differently to address the concerns of the Town of Vernon residents if you formulate future border agreements with Muskego, New Berlin, and Town of Waukesha? I'll start with Mr. Vernon.
Well, Bill alluded to the fact that we had public on the border agreement discussions from 1/27/17 to 12/2018, 15 of those. We had total of 48 with closed sessions, so I don't know how much more people want to be informed. I think that's some more of somebody's opinion that they weren't informed. It's been at the town board level since 2017. There's been maps. We've had 2 public forums. Can we do a better job? I think so. I think we can. Will we do a better job? Yeah. We've got with changing the land use plan, you're all going to get a flyer in the mail. We've got some maps coming, and we're going to have an informational at the town hall here. It's going to be the 13th of March, correct?
Yep.
I'm pretty sure, Karen, 13th of March. So we're going to do that. With Muskego, everything over there on that side of the road, or on that side of town, is still real preliminary, and we're just kind of holding back and not really making any decisions as a board. We're actually setting the ground rules. And the first ground rule was, Gary and I sat in that discussion with the mayor, and we had a 10-minute commercial on sewer. And after she got done with that, I said, we really don't want it, thank you. And then I said, if the same thing with McGuanago, if that's what you want, we don't want it. And then I asked her, I says, how can you expand out of your area when you go with MMSD? I said, that's water usage and sewage usage. How do you do that? Well, then we just kind of stopped talking about that.
Yeah.
So they know up front, we're not looking for sewer. So that's not coming. The town of Vernon, we don't need it, number one. Number two, we can't afford it. We got too many large areas that people own frontages. They can't afford to put that stuff in. You know, you take $150 a foot just for the main and the road. You take 150 feet, which is the minimal frontage. People can't afford that. So, no, we're not looking for sewer, we're not looking for water. And can we do a better job? Yes.
Thank you. Gary, would you like to expound any more on that?
Well, in regard to the information, I felt that we sent the letter out to the property owners that were affected by them. And in retrospect, hindsight's 20/20, we probably should have sent it out to the whole community, but we didn't. So now we're trying to rectify that now by having some more information meetings in regard to like this land use plan is coming up, and we are going to, I believe we have a boundary agreement information meeting scheduled too, don't we, Karen? I think on the 26th of February. Mm-hmm. So we're going to have some more discussions yet, and have people come in and give us their opinion. It's really difficult to determine, how to handle situations like this once in a while. And like I said, hindsight's always 20/20. We probably should have done a better job of keeping people informed. But it's been in the newsletter, and it's been in our town board agendas and everything. So majority of us thought that, it's pretty well been hashed around. We only had one person, based on this article that was about the boundary agreement in 2017, call the town hall and ask any questions about it, and they lived in River Oak subdivision. So I mean, we need to appreciate the fact that people need to be better informed, and I think we're going to try and do a better job at doing that.
Bill, would you like to say?
Well, the one major point I would make is, well, two actually, the minimal amount of phone calls I got in the last year on this issue, probably less than 5 or 6.
And more dog complaints.
And mostly questions like Gary was referring to, they found out they were not within the border agreement territory, so it was a no-brainer for them. But the other thing is, when I look at all the different announcements that were made about this, the newsletter back in 17, the agendas including discussion, not just meeting, about discussion, open citizens' comments before and at the end of every meeting. We're all ears as a board, and like I said before, I look forward to getting calls from people, for me or against me. At least I know where we stand. The worst thing is when you hear nothing. We heard next to nothing. So 2 hearings in McGuanago, what keeps coming back to me is Chairman Byrd just touched on it before. I remember him saying no less than 10 times in those 2 meetings, okay, I understand how you feel. What is your solution? Not one person in either hearing, not one, had an alternate plan to a boundary agreement. And the reason for that was, we didn't just ready, fire, aim. We did our homework, studied this over, and were very careful about what we were looking at. So I remember that distinctly, probably 10 times. Okay, thank you for your comments. What's your solution? Do you have an alternative? I didn't hear one in 2 2-hour meeting sessions. So to us as a board, what does that tell us? It tells us we've got the best solution available, which I still feel is correct. And I would just like to make a quick reference. We talked about annexations. If you go back, Chairman Byrd talked about going back to 92. I went back to 1967 now. And if you look, what I did is I pulled the acreage all together and put it right in the middle of the township so everyone could see what significance. If you look at the darkened area, the outer perimeter is town of Vernon. But now you look at 8 sections That's really what we've lost as a township since 1967. Primarily Big Bend and Village of McGuire. 8 sections, that's huge, huge amount of land. And it's going to keep on going if we don't use our initiatives to resolve this problem. But I come back to Mr. Berg's question. What are your alternatives? Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Next question is, our adjacent communities, Muskego, New Berlin, and the town of Waukesha have all the meeting information that their board members receive available to the public on their websites. Are you in favor of making the town of Vernon's town board and planning commission e-packets available on the town of Vernon website? Mr. Berg.
Sure. I don't see any reason why. Once it once it is in a packet, I don't see any reason why, because that's all the discussion points. That's what, see, being town chairman, you put that stuff together and we gather all the information up, and if one of the guys want to put something on the town agenda, that's fine. They got to get the information. It all gets compiled by the clerk's office. And then when Karen says the e-packets are ready, they all go out to them. And I have no problem with the people seeing that and putting it on there. I have no problem with that. But getting back to that previous question, I just want to add to that. We have, and you can get it's on the website, the 2002 preliminary, the draft of the agreement between the town of Vernon, Village of Big Bend, the consolidation with the border agreement with the Village of McGuanago. We also have that sewer and water agreement. Now I'm going to be talking about that sewer and water agreement Thursday night. We know, and we went into this agreement with the knowledge of what that was. And if you look at that, we specifically didn't do things that were in there because we know it didn't fly. It left a bad taste in everybody's mouth. It was like every time somebody talks about our border agreement now, the town's a victim. Well, yeah, it's because of previous things that would happen. Okay, we didn't want to do that. And the town is not victimized with this. We looked at it, we did our homework, we went into those negotiations. We knew what we were going to try to do. And that's what we did. It isn't just, like Bill says, ready, fire, aim. We did a lot of work on it.
Gary, you would agree with me?
Yeah, as far as the information packets, I got no problem with that. An informed public is a knowledgeable public. We need to get people to come down here and express their opinions. That we sit down, we're the only ones here, us and the clerk, at the meetings, and we know we're going out on TV and hoping that people are watching and on YouTube and everything, which we put our information out on. But it's nice to have a real live body show up once in a while and tell us, hey, I don't agree with you here, or come at public forum and tell us, we sit here and listen. We don't fall asleep or yell at them or anything. That's their right, and that's why it's on the agenda, the public comments. The more people know, the better they are in regard to informed and where they live and what's going on in their community. A lot of people in this community go to work, come home, and that's it. They don't go out of the house again. They don't have any knowledge of what's going on in the town. We have people that show up at voting that think they vote in McGuanago because their address is in McGuanago, or they call Karen with some questions about why am I getting this bill? I don't live in Vernon. I live in Big Bend. Well, they got a post office in Big Bend, so it's really silly how people don't take an interest in their community. I've been out here a long, long time, and You know, I'm interested in everything from the garbage pickup to my neighbor having a dog. You know, everything it happens in the town affects me, and I would feel that everybody should have that same interest. But I know they don't, but they got busy lives and everything. But they're more than welcome to show up, and the more information we get out there, the happier we have as far as the community goes.
Thank you. Bill, would you like to add anything to the e-packets?
Oh, no, I'd be totally in favor, yeah. The question would be, do we want the town to be mailing these, or?
No, I think we want to hear.
On the internet?
Internet.
Okay. Oh, yeah, I'd be totally, totally in favor.
Not mailing.
No, not.
Okay. Next one is, how will the town of Vernon office be staffed now that the clerk and treasurer's duties have been combined? Will extra personnel be hired? If so, at what cost? Let's start with you, Bill.
Would you please repeat?
Sure. How will the town of Vernon office be staffed now that the clerk and treasurer's duties have been combined? Will extra personnel be hired? If so, at what cost?
Okay. I guess once Karen gets established in the dual position, she'll be able to give us input as a board, what her needs are, and we can react at that time. It's kind of tough at this point to say. Obviously, we're going to be looking for the best, the least and best investment we can make for additional personnel. I will say one thing along the lines. I have a lot of contact with Citizens Bank through my business and such, and I got some negative feedback. The fact that our bank, Citizens Bank, not our bank, Citizens Bank, does an awful lot of our tax receipts. I personally pay my taxes every year at the bank, one of the branches, because I know when they're there all the time. We haven't had that opportunity in Vernon, which has aggravated some people, and as good as the bank has been about doing that service for us at free, no charge, the tellers get a little frustrated at times over there because of the backlog. So, for whatever that's worth. So I think we're going to have to look at better taxation collection within that office. More hours open. So I as a board member would look to Karen as of mid-April to give us some guidance. Here's what I think we're going to need. We can get by adjusting some schedules or whatever.
Now, Mr. William, would you like to expound on that at all?
In regard to the combination of the two offices, what scares me half to pieces is that the previous time when Karen ran for election, a person ran against her who said that she was good at delegating authority, but she had no knowledge of the town clerk's job. And boy, people can't even imagine how much work comes out of the clerk's office, how much information she handles on a daily basis. And combining the two offices is an efficient way to save the town money, to combine the offices where one person's going to be responsible for taking care of everything, and she will, as of April, she will be accountable to the town board rather than the electors. Now, that's not saying the electors are stupid or something, that we know better than they do, but there's some accountability now. In that position, in the past, she wasn't accountable to the town board, or that position isn't a town. If she didn't want to have office hours, she didn't have to have office hours. If she wanted to run her office out of the home, she could have done that. So it's just a case of for more protection to the residents of the community, we combine the two offices. Where most communities are going to today is a combined clerk treasurer. It's just a matter of efficiency and a better way to run your office.
Thank you. Mr. Vernon, would you like to comment?
The clerk treasurer's position, you got to remember, this was done last April at the meeting. Was done by the constituents. It's what the constituents want. So, with that being said, I think the person that we have, Karen, we posted the job, and we didn't get a lot of qualified applicants. And with that being said, I think the person now that is going to do the job, combined clerk treasurer, I have all the faith in the world in her. And she wouldn't have got the job if the board didn't think she could do the job. Number one. Number two, I think the staff that she's got is very capable, and that they know what's going to be expected of them, and we can handle the job. The clerk's office can handle the job. And Karen doesn't have to go out in a foot and a half of snow and pound signs in.
Thank you. Next question. Several town of Vernon communities have vacancies, and the terms of some of these people now serving will expire in April. What will you do to make the residents aware of these committee vacancies? Mr. Lundy.
Okay. Sorry, Merle.
Several town of Vernon committees have vacancies, and the terms of
Yeah.
some of the people now serving will expire in April. What will you do to make the residents aware of these committee vacancies in case someone else wants to?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we announce at the town board that there are vacancies, when they occur for positions on the individual committees and these committees serve a real good purpose because they process information that passed on to the town board with recommendations occasionally. There's an ordinance committee that a couple of members of the town board sit on, the Public Health and Safety Committee, a DPW committee, a personnel committee, and all of these committees act with the consent of the town board. They don't do anything independently. Everything that they do is with the input and permission from the town board. They look at an issue and then they make recommendations to the town board. The town board has the ultimate say-so, but these positions are available to anybody. Matter of fact, we got a position that's going to be opening up on the Plan Commission. There's going to be needing another person to fill a position on the Plan Commission, and we encourage anybody who has an interest in serving on the town to apply or put their name in. And it's a good way to learn on what's going on in the community by serving on one of these committees. Tom's Water Committee started out like that too. These are people that show an interest and they want to serve on the town. Plus, you get the advantage of coming to the appreciation dinner in December. It's some way to give back to your community. I know it's hard for people to have time available, but most of these committees don't last. They're one meeting once a month. Our Public Health Committee hasn't met for a couple of months now because there hasn't been any outstanding issues that we've had to approach. But when the town board says, "Hey, we want you to look at this," then send it down, and then we'll have a committee meeting, and then bring it back to the town board. But I encourage everybody that wants to serve on the committee, put your name in. We're more than happy to. Don't have to have any special qualifications. Just be willing to serve.
Thank you. Mr. Craig, you have any comments on that?
So along the same line?
Yes.
I agree totally with Gary. Here again, when we do put out the word that we need members, whether it's Plan Commission, whether it's personnel, whatever, we hardly get a response.
Yeah.
I would hope we get 5 responses per opening. We're lucky if we can fill the one. Ordinance Committee, they work very hard on very important issues. As Gary said, we've got one vacancy coming up on the Plan Commission very soon. I would wonder if we're going to have to go begging for someone or if we're going to get 5 qualified volunteers coming along. In the past, we're just not getting the volunteers. We appreciate the people who do volunteer very much, and hopefully they like the dinner they get, I don't know. But I hate to wager a guess, but we're probably going to be out there waiting a while to get these positions filled. And they're just appointed. You don't run for office. you give your resume of sorts to the board, however minimal it may be, and the board just decides to appoint you. So that's it. And as Gary said, you have basically one meeting a month maximum, except if we get in your budget time, there may be another 1 or 2 meetings. So.
Thank you. Mr. Boyd, would you like to comment on
Yeah, it's hard to get people to serve on these committees. We want to encourage people to come. When we post them, it doesn't get the type of enthusiasm that you would think. But we'll gladly post anything. When it comes up in April, we'll know before that meeting, and town board has to act on it, and if people want to re-up, they have to have the chance to do it. But after April, we'll probably have a few open situations where we'll need members. So anybody in the room here that wants to serve.
Where do you advertise for that?
We can put that on the website.
I don't get the website. I'm not allowed to be getting this at home. We live on Maple Avenue, and we
You
do
don't
not
get
have that.
you can't have a computer that you can get YouTube?
No.
You don't?
And I don't have, it can't come on our TV either, because we don't have that type of.
Well, this is broadcast on YouTube. And that's why we went to that, because some of the people in the town don't have cable.
Right.
And that's why we went to YouTube. Now I've got that little laptop. If you've got a computer at home, and if you've got a router or wireless or whatever you've got, I can pick that up anywhere where I've got a signal off of that. I can get it on my phone, because I can get YouTube on the phone. So it's available and it's there.
Thank you.
Can I ask a question? So I'm hearing really that there's a gap in communication, right? If either in terms of getting.
Excuse me, who are you?
I'm a resident.
Of, and your
Cara
name?
Vernon. My name is Cara, last name
Okay,
Whitcomb.
okay.
Oh, do you want me to come? Oh,
So we can all
I'm
hear.
sorry. I realized they were just yelling questions, so I didn't. Yeah. I'm just hearing a gap in communication, either in terms of getting to people for committees here, or getting information out for the border discussions and things. Just wondering, are there other solutions that can be looked at in terms of bringing people in, or looking at that? Like, what do other municipalities do in terms of doing that? Do they go to social media? Do they do other kinds of non-traditional ways? And I may be out of the ballpark with this, but it's just what I'm hearing is that you're looking for people and we're not getting them. How can we reach a different audience, perhaps? How can we reach other to bring them in? I don't know. I mean, are there other alternatives?
Yeah.
Can we think outside the box besides, the website, other things? I don't know. I don't know. I don't have an answer, but I'm just.
It's a good point, and we're open to suggestions, because we
That's what I
go
was
through
trying
these
to-
frustrations every time.
Right, and I was sitting there trying to think about what are other solutions. I just was
Right.
wondering, what do other areas do? I don't have enough knowledge, honestly. Anyway,
Obviously, if the timing's right, it could go in a newsletter, but
Yeah.
that, you could be off cycle in the newsletter.
right.
So,
Anyway, food for thought for, I don't know
Yeah.
that I want an
Well, if you
answer.
have any suggestions,
I know, I'm thinking about it.
yeah.
Yeah.
My phone number,
I am thinking about that. I'm hearing that too.
all of our phone numbers, my phone number, you can contact the clerk. I'd be happy to entertain, listen to you. And
Like, do we move to a social media, some kind of, I don't know. It was just an idea, just to bring it up as I was thinking. Sorry, I didn't realize I had to come to the front and center either.
Thank you for speaking up.
Thank you.
thanks for the comment.
back. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Green and green.
No, no.
Okay.
Next question. Several of the town of Vernon committee do not have minutes posted on the website or have even met in over a year. Some have no agendas or minutes posted. Is this acceptable to you? If not, what do you propose as a solution to this issue? We'll start with Mr. Bird.
Many of the, what's the question? Many what?
Okay. Several of the town and Vernon committees do not have minutes posted on the website or have not met in over a year. Some have no agendas or minutes posted. Is this acceptable to you?
Well, they probably haven't got minutes posted because they probably didn't meet. I'd have to look into that.
I believe that's easily correctable by, there's minutes that I know have taken of our public health and safety, that could be posted without any difficulty at all. You know, actually, they could be incorporated into the town board packet where it could be so the town board members could see the minutes of the individual committees that meet. You know, in regard to the not meeting, I know our committee hasn't met for some months, and the reasoning being that there hasn't been a whole lot of issues that we've had to talk about. You know, the town board generally will, if an issue comes before the town board that they want to send it to a committee, then they'll send it down. And not too many issues have come to the public health and safety from the town board. And just to be meeting just for the sake of meeting, that's kind of a waste of the people's time. We probably will, as far as public health and safety, we'll have to get together now because we have to review some fire department and sheriff department reports, you know, for the last few months that we haven't had an opportunity to look at. So, and we postponed one meeting because of weather and circumstances. We didn't have enough people in one meeting. So, but I'm not opposed to having the minutes posted on the website either, you know, or whichever way the information can get out. You know, more than happy to have our minutes put out because we do take minutes at our meeting.
Thank you. Mr. Frank?
I feel a lot the way Gary's describing. I'm chairing two committees, DPW and Personnel. And several years ago, there were a lot of issues going on that we needed to meet sometimes twice a month. Right now, this DPW is going to be one of these committees we're going to need 2 or 3 new members to update if we're going to meet soon. I like to see the committees meet, like Gary said, you don't want to meet every month just because you want to meet. But especially come budget time, I'd like to see the committees get a little more active to get their input on the budget because we spend a lot of time working on the numbers and might save the board some time too if we get more committee recommendations. I think my 2 committees I'm referring to, I don't think we met, hate to see it, in about 2 years now. And then the members get kind of frustrated and say, well, why am I on this? You don't need me. So I would like to see the committees get a little more active, not just for the sake of meeting, but for specific items, like I say, budgetary, whether the DPW needs the equipment they're looking for. Personnel right now, that might become an issue with Karen being clerk treasurer. We may have to get our personnel committee together, get some recommendations. But I would agree with the thought that they are not as active as they should be. But like Gary said again, it's kind of the direction of the board. If Bill Craig says, let's refer it to health and safety, now Gary, being chair, will, at the consensus of the board, set a meeting to discuss that issue. So it should come from the board, but I would like to see the committees meet on a more regular basis myself. If for no other reason, just to keep the rapport out there amongst the members and let people know we are active, and I definitely would like to see those minutes published on the website as well.
The next question is the same thing that has to do with the town board minutes, so basically it's answered the same way. The last question was future transfer of lands from the town of Vernon to McGuanago. I think that was answered priorly with everything, all the questions we had. Unless you want something more on that one.
I don't recall the last one, so would you read the last one?
Okay, sure. Other than having a plan for future transfer of land from the town of Vernon to the village of McGuanago, please outline at least 3 ways in which the town of Vernon will benefit from the proposed border agreement. I believe this was talked about throughout this meeting already. I don't know if you're aware of that. I would like to go to closing statements now. Thank you. Bill Craig, you start out. Thank you. Bill, closing statement.
Oh, closing statement, okay. Mine is very brief. I would just like to say I intend on working the system the way I have, being conservative on spending, keeping taxes down, keeping our equipment tip-top shape, keeping good personnel, and I just want my track record to be compared to my opponents. That's about all. History of my track record and my background, education, and experience. Thank you.
Yeah,
Mr. Willett?
I want to thank all of you that are here tonight, and those that are probably watching on TV and YouTube. I'm running again for the seat here. I was hoping that we would have some dialogue with the 3 candidates that are running against us, but they're not here. So we have to stand on what our record is, and in the hopes that people will understand that what we do is in the best interest of the town of Vernon. I don't live any place other than the town of Vernon, and I support everything for the residents of the town of Vernon. I don't care about the residents of Big Bend. I don't care about the residents of McGuanago. I care about the people that live here in this community. And I'm more interested in making sure that, like Bill talked about, keeping taxes down, keeping the services up, and making sure that people get their roads plowed, the garbage picked up, and the dogs taken care of when we get their complaints. But other than that, I appreciate Merle and Joe for running this, Karen for helping, and I look forward to having the next one in March, and I hope we will be able to have a discussion with some of the other candidates.
Thank you. Mr. Byrne?
First, I'd like to thank you, Merle, for being a commentator. Thank you. And Mr. Riley, thank you for putting this on. And Miss you as the timekeeper. I'd like to thank you also. Was that to hurry up? Okay, yeah. I think the people have heard us enough. Running for chairman again. Would appreciate your vote. I stand on a record of what we've done. Goals for the next 2 years is border agreements with McGuanago, New Berlin, and hopefully we can work something out with Big Bend. Thank you. Thank you all for coming.
Yep. Thank you. Thank you all for coming. The next forum is on March 19th, same time, and the backup date is March 20th. So please, if you know the other candidates, please encourage them to be here. Thank you.
Excuse me for a second while we're still on. Okay, the next forum is on March 19th. Okay, that's Wednesday. The backup is the 20th of March. Okay, and it runs from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Okay, again, that's the 19th of March.
I can't pick them up.
Thank you folks.